when an athlete or a bodybuilder goes to the gym to work out, his or her goal, of course, is to build bigger muscles. Do you see, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that there has to be something about the workout itself? You're in the gym. We know you have to lift weights, right? I mean, there's one bit of logic nobody can escape. We all know you have to lift weights. Do you see where there has to be some one element, therefore, some factor, some variable within the workout itself, which is responsible for inducing growth stimulation, for causing the muscle to start to grow, in other words? It is only within the context of understanding what this variable is that a bodybuilder can intelligently do the type of training necessary to cause growth stimulation. If you don't know what intensity is, then you don't know how to work out, in other words. And how can you justify spending even one more day or month going to the gym confused and uncertain? How many of you, having heard that little introductory piece where I described the title of my first book, Bodybuilders Are Confused, how many of you in here have never been confused about bodybuilding? Okay. I said there has to be something about the workout itself. There has to be some element, some variable about the workout itself, which itself is responsible for triggering or flipping on the growth machinery inside the muscle. And of course, it is related to the intensity of effort involved with any given set of an exercise. Now, I'm not going to ask you people to write down much, and of course you're free. We still live in a semi-free country. You don't have to write down anything at all, but if you are going to follow me here today, if you're going to get intense mentally, as I suggested earlier, I would strongly advise you to write down the proper, valid, scientific definition of intensity, which I'm going to give you in a moment. Get your pens poised and ready. If you want to understand anything truly meaningful about exercise, this thing we all love, then you have to understand this next statement. You ready? Properly defined intensity. Properly defined. I'll speak slowly and I'll repeat myself because this is the most important point today in a fundamental sense. Properly defined intensity refers to the percentage of possible momentary muscular effort being exerted. Does anyone require that I state that again? Got it? Now, since the definition I just gave you is rather abstract or technical, in fact, when I first read that definition, I didn't have the slightest clue. What the hell does that mean, I thought. Now I do understand it perfectly. The best way to clarify a highly abstract or technical definition is to go to a concrete example in perceptual reality. You, like any healthy, well-conditioned person, are capable of exerting yourself with a maximum effort at any given moment. What I'm going to do here is carefully explain intensity. This may seem slow for 2 minutes, but then we'll move more briskly ahead. If you were to look outside right now, any one of you, and you saw a loved one pinned under the front wheel of an automobile without a second thought or need of a warm-up, you've heard these stories. If you saw one of your loved ones pinned under the front wheel of a car, you'd run out there, and in the attempt to lift the car off that person, you would exert yourself with 100% of your possible momentary muscular effort. Now let's plug in the word for the definition. You would exert yourself with 100% intensity of effort. Let's assume hypothetically that you, the listener today, could curl a 100-pound barbell for a maximum of 10 reps to failure, such that you couldn't possibly do an 11th rep. In other words, that last rep, that 10th rep, you're gritting your teeth, you're shaking all over, and you're barely able to complete the curl. However, the first rep of that set of curls with 100 pounds to failure I just described does not require 100% intensity of effort. Of course not. Of all the reps of that set, the first rep obviously would be experienced by you as the easiest rep of the set. The rep requiring the least intensity of effort, in other words. That first rep does fatigue you a little bit, of course, however, And that's why the second rep would be experienced by you as a little bit harder. Whereas the first rep may require on the order of 8 to 12% of your possible or maximum momentary muscular effort. The second rep may require 20% intensity of effort. The second rep fatigues you even further, of course, and the third rep will be harder still, requiring an even more intense effort to complete than did the second. And so it goes, of course, ladies and gentlemen, with each successive rep of the set. Each rep grows progressively more difficult to complete. Each one requires a more intense effort than did the preceding, until finally we get to that last possible rep in this hypothetical case, the 10th rep, the one that requires a maximum all-out effort. Again, you're gritting your teeth, you're shaking all over, and you're barely able to curl the bar to the top. That would be the only rep of the set which is said to require literally 100% intensity of effort. Now let me ask you a question. If you could curl 100 pounds for 10 reps, and you literally only ever did one rep, the first rep, and put the bar back down on the floor every time, never attempting any more than that, do you think you would ever grow? No. Why not? Because the intensity of the stress would be too low, not threatening enough to the body's physiology to cause an adaptive response, i.e., a strength and muscular size increase. Do you see also, ladies and gentlemen, where it would stand to reason that the last rep would also be better than the second rep? If you could curl 100 pounds for 10 reps to failure and you did 2 reps, do you think you would get anything out of it? Or 3 reps or 4? Of course not. That last rep is very, very special. There is something that goes on physiologically on that last rep in the set where maximum intensity is required, which is literally responsible for flipping on the growth machinery inside the muscle. Do you see why it's so very crucially important you understand that? If you don't understand the principle of intensity, you don't know how to guide your training efforts. Again, this is the most fundamentally important principle in exercise science.